Hey, it's Rick. Welcome to the channel. In this video, I'll go over the steps involved to create this Roger Rabbit animation cell. This image is from the Roger Rabbit short called Tummy Trouble, where he babysits baby Herman and they end up in a hospital full of explosives and get blown up. This cell is a little non-standard in its size. It's tall because the background was used as a panning shot. I started by priming a piece of masonite with an acrylic gesso. I give it several coats in opposite directions to minimize the brush strokes. I set the background up on my easel. I'd prefer to work on it on a flat surface or a flat table, but this thing is too big for my desk. I tape off the margins with blue painter's tape and sketch the outline down on the board. I used a variety of airbrushes on this. My two faves are the Iwata HPB and the Pache V. I'm using Liquitex acrylic gouache for this. I use a siphon feed Pache with a large bottle to cover the bulk of the background quickly. The sky is mostly blues and purples. The cloud work is all done freehand with a fine airbrush and very thin paint. This requires lots of coats over the same areas to build opacity. I'm going to time-lapse a lot of this. Airbrush is pretty boring to watch in real time. You're putting down such a subtle application of color that it doesn't look like anything's happening. When I've got the sky completely finished, I move on to the globe below. I put down a sheet of Frisket so I can cut out the masked areas like the clouds. I use an X-Acto swivel cutter to cut out the intricate shapes. Now I can start painting the horizon clouds. I'm using pieces of clear Frisket here, held freehand as a mask, to give me a sharper edge on some of the shadows. I layer a lot of similar colors, mostly shades of blue and gray. When I'm done with these clouds, I mask them off and start work on the surface of the globe. I love how, in the original, they painted this in to look like an actual globe, complete with country borders and state names. The original is pretty inaccurate, and mine's even less accurate than that, so don't complain things are in the wrong spot. At some point I stopped referring to the original reference and just kept painting, making stuff up as I went. I'm not trying to fool anybody into thinking this is the real, original cel by slavishly copying the reference material. Feel free to put your own style into this. I tend to use scrap sheets of paper under my hand to keep from ruining the work. I do a bit of fine spraying on the clouds with the Pache Turbo. This airbrush is capable of the finest lines without clogging, but it whines like a dentist drill the whole time you're using it, so it can get on your nerves after a while. And that's it for the background. Here it is with the masking tape removed. I sealed the whole thing with a coat of clear matte acrylic varnish just to protect it. Now to make the cel. I created the outlines in Illustrator, tracing over the reference picture. For all my previous cels, I just hand drew the line work on the back of a sheet of glass with a technical pen and acetate ink. This time I'd like to do better. With the old technique, I can't achieve any sort of liveliness to the line work, no variation of thick and thin. I've been doing some screen printing lately, and my thought was that if I created the artwork on the computer, I could burn a stencil and use it to screen print the line work onto the glass. In the end, this didn't work out for me though. The problem I had was getting ink that would work well. I tried thickening enamels with talc, but that ink was too sticky and did strange things when I lifted the screen. Then I tried acrylic, but that wasn't compatible with the enamels I use for coloring it in. Ultimately, I abandoned the idea of screen printing. But then I thought, what about an airbrush stencil? I do have a silhouette vinyl cutter, so I used that to cut the stencil. At first I tried regular vinyl, but its adhesive was too aggressive and didn't want to come off the glass. So then I found this vivid low-tack stencil vinyl on Amazon. This stuff seems to work well. I did have to do it a few times to get the cut settings correct, but in the end, it worked. I stuck that down to the glass, sprayed the line work with acetate ink, and then very carefully peeled the masking off. This line work is super delicate at this stage. It can be wiped away with the slightest touch, so you've got to be careful. Then I filled the colors with Tester's model enamel. I can't find any vinyl cell paints, I don't think they're made anymore. If you want to try this yourself, it's important that you use an ink for the line work and coloring that won't interfere with each other. I found that if I use acrylic for the line work and then acrylic for the coloring, the line work will lift from the glass. And if you use enamels for both, the same thing happens. The colors will dissolve and lift the line work. I'm being very careful when I apply the color, not to rub the line work away with the brush. I'm just sort of dropping the enamel in place. I hope you got some inspiration out of this. Making your own cell doesn't have to be hard or intimidating, and you certainly don't have to start with something this complicated. There's plenty out there that are much simpler than this. Don't forget to hit all the buttons on your way out, and thanks for watching.